married last weekend, and in honor of my actual real life wedding, I thought it would be kind of fun to build a wedding venue in The Sims. And this video is gonna be kind of chatty. I'm gonna show you the speed build, but I'm mostly gonna be talking about the actual wedding in this one. So if you don't care about that, I totally get it. Feel free to click off or even like skip to the end because I'll give you a tour there. The middle of this video is just gonna be me yapping. I am warning you in advance. I do get off topic a lot in speed builds, but this one is even more so. Like, this is a classic old school Simsy speed build. Before we start, I will talk about the build a little bit though. So we're gonna build this in Tartosa, which is the world that came with the wedding pack, and I'm gonna build it on the wedding venue lot. I'll just bulldoze this default one. The idea here is not to build my actual real life wedding venue, it's just to build a wedding venue for my Sims. And this is a pretty big lot, so we have a lot of room to work with. And kind of my initial plan was to have both an indoor and outdoor space for the entire event. I wanted to have an indoor ceremony space with like big windows, a pretty wedding arch, all the chairs lined up. But I also wanted to have an outdoor ceremony space in case you wanted to do it outside. And then same thing, I wanted to have an indoor reception space with like the dance floor and all the tables and all the buffet stuff. But then I also wanted to have an outdoor reception space with more tables, more music, all of those things. Because then if you hosted a wedding here for your Sims, you can kind of mix and match and you've got options. If the weather's bad, you can have them go inside. You could host 2 weddings here and have them be completely different because you could have one indoor and one outdoor. And I wanted it to be fully prepared to host every aspect of these events. So I wanted to have a catering kitchen, I wanted to have woohoo spots, I wanted photography spots. I even put sort of like a bridal suite upstairs, almost like a getting ready room. A lot of real life wedding venues have that kind of thing, and you don't really need it in The Sims, but it is kind of cute. And when I say bridal suite, it ends up being more like a bedroom, almost like a hotel room. Anybody could stay in there. But that way, if you wanted to shower, if you wanted to sleep here afterward, if you wanted to woohoo in the bed, like you've got all of those options covered. So that's kind of an overview of what I'm trying to build. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the actual speed build and I will show you what I've built. The beginning of this speed build is definitely a trust the process kind of moment, like many of my speed builds are, because I knew that I wanted it to have more than one building. I thought it would be a nice way to take up space because the lot was so big, but then I ended up with this kind of weird like snake shape almost. It's like an S. That back building is for the reception, like I was telling you earlier. The front is for the ceremony, and then we have kind of like a front courtyard for the reception, and the back also has a courtyard for the ceremony. So it's just split up across all these different areas. And the whole beginning of this is just me experimenting with shape and like how the shell was gonna work. I don't even touch windows or wallpaper for so long. I was just thinking about the main shape of the building. So while past Simsy is trying to figure that out, let's talk about the real wedding. I have posted some pictures on my Instagram, so you might have seen them already in case you follow me there, but I'll put a couple here in this video because I know that you might want to see them. So here's kind of a quick look at some of those pictures. I had this kind of lacy dress with a really long train. I added sleeves to it. It was originally spaghetti straps, but I did not like that, so I put sleeves on it. They're kind of like poofy sheer sleeves. I had a really long veil with like pearls all down the whole thing. Dan wore a green suit, which was kind of exciting. Our siblings were the whole bridal party, so our sisters wore these pretty pink dresses, and the whole thing was kind of like pinky, peachy flowers. So now you've kind of seen it. You'll have a better idea of what I'm talking about. We had the wedding at this really beautiful old house on a lake here in Orlando. It's kind of a wild story for this house as well because it's one of the oldest houses in town. It was built in like the 1880s and it was originally in a different spot. It was like across the lake somewhere. Somebody bought the lot and wanted to tear it down and build like a new modern house in that place on the lake, and the city was like, please don't do that. Please don't tear it down. It's a historic house. So people raised money to buy the house, not the land, just the house. And they picked the house up, chopped it in half, and they floated it across the lake to this museum that had some space on the grounds. And they put the house back together on that museum lot, and now it exists there and it's a wedding venue. It's also an art museum, I guess, but the art museum is separate. The house is kind of just like next door, but it's a really pretty house. It's kind of like this Tudor style. It's very white on the inside. And in the back, they have these sculpture gardens. There's flowers everywhere. It's on the lake, so you've got these beautiful views of the water. They also have a dock back there, so we took some photos on it. Pretty much the whole thing happened outside, and thankfully we had such good weather. I was getting really nervous about it because we've had some pretty rough weather in Orlando this winter. I live in Florida, so it's pretty much always hot. Like, all the time it's hot. Even in the winter, it's hot. I booked the wedding in February on purpose because I was hoping it would be kind of like what you would expect from spring weather in other parts of the world. I thought maybe it'd be like in the 70s, nice outside, sunny. But like a week before the wedding, it was 40 degrees and raining, which isn't like freezing cold, but that's freezing cold for us here in Florida and really unpleasant, especially because the whole thing's gonna be outside. Like nobody wants to be in their wedding dress in the mud, standing in the rain, shivering, right? Like it would have been horrible. It warmed up so much. It was like 78 degrees. It was sunny all weekend. Literally couldn't have been better. It was like the perfect weather. I was so glad because everybody came in town. They wanted to go to Disney and stuff. So everybody had really nice weather for their Florida trip and the wedding was perfect. Like it just went so well in that way. There was no mud. Like it was fine. Everything was fine. So we had the ceremony in kind of like this big open grassy area they have in the backyard of the house, and we put all the chairs out facing the lake. We had an arch, like a white arch with some flowers in the corner behind us, and me and Dan read our own vows, which was really beautiful and I really loved doing. I was super nervous about it because I was kind of, I don't know, I guess I felt a bit shy about it, and I was also kind of scared that we would have had like mismatched vows. I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't want one of us to have like longer ones or like have it one seem better than the other person. So I was just kind of like scared of how it was gonna go. We did tell each other how many words we had each written, so we kind of had it matched that way, but it was great. It was beautiful. I loved that part of the wedding. I also sobbed. You guys, I was sobbing the entire time. Dan was crying too, but like I could barely get through it saying it out loud because I was sobbing. This is kind of gross, but there was like snot dripping down my nose. At one point I went like this and then I held Dan's hand again with my snot hand. I didn't bring a tissue or anything. I should have in hindsight. I didn't think it was gonna be that bad. And I don't think you could see the snot in the photos, but there was snot dripping down my face. I also kind of like blocked out every aspect of the ceremony aside from like just Dan standing there. After we finished the ceremony, we like left and then came back and took photos in front of the arch. And I walked up and I was like, oh, the arch looks really pretty. Like I hadn't even seen it. Meanwhile, I had been stood in front of it having this whole wedding ceremony. Didn't even notice it was there. Didn't even look at it. I guess that makes sense. I think that happens at most people's weddings. Like I wasn't, looking out at the crowd. I wasn't looking behind me. Like I was, just looking at Dan because that was the point of the wedding. But I guess I didn't expect to have like fully, I don't know, like blocked out everything else in that way to that extreme. We also had a string quartet playing for the whole ceremony and cocktail hour and then through dinner. So a group of 4 people were playing violins for the music outside. And I hadn't originally like wanted that. Like I didn't set out thinking I need to have live music at my wedding. But because our wedding venue is in like a neighborhood, because a bunch of people live with their houses along the lake, rich people have their houses on that lake. They're like $8 million. But because the wedding venue is in a neighborhood, like people live next door to it, they have some noise ordinances there. So you can't have any amplified sound outside. So you can't have like a DJ or a speaker playing music outside, but you can have instruments outside. So we kind of got like forced to have the string quartet. I know, so terrible, right? We had to have live music at the wedding. But I am so glad that we did that. It also wasn't as expensive as I thought it was going to be. Like I mean, it was not cheap, but I think I thought it would be like thousands and thousands of dollars, and it wasn't. We also paid for like half the time that a DJ would normally come because we still had a DJ for afterward because they had an inside of the house where we did the dancing and stuff. But the DJ wasn't expensive because we only had him for half as much time. So it kind of like split the cost. And I'm so glad that we did that. It literally felt like I was in Bridgerton because they were playing a bunch of modern music. I picked out all the songs they were gonna play. They could play Good Luck Babe by Chapel Roan. So we're like sat at cocktail hour and they're playing Good Luck Babe on the violin. It was so cool. Unfortunately, I don't remember what it sounded like during the ceremony because again, completely blocked everything else out. But I've heard that it was beautiful, them playing during the ceremony because they played like Enchanted by Taylor Swift for me to walk down the aisle to. Don't remember that, but I'm sure it was nice. After the ceremony, we have cocktail hour, which is like the standard thing you do at a wedding. Basically, they just open the bar and kind of pass around appetizers while the couple goes and takes photos. So we went and did that. At this point, I also had to pee, which was a whole ordeal because the dress was massive. So they bustled me into the dress because when you have a train like I did, basically the dress is like super long in the back and they have to pin it up so that you can actually walk around after the ceremony. So they did my bustle and then I went into the bathroom. This was a humbling experience and Dan had to like hold the whole thing up so that I could use the bathroom. Honestly, you guys, it was a process, but it worked out fine. The dress was fine. I was having these visions of like, what if I drop it in the toilet? What then? Like that would be a disaster. It was fine. Oh, I skipped a whole big part as well. We did a first look. That was before the ceremony. I don't know how common this is elsewhere because Dan's family was saying how they've never been to a wedding that has a first look. So I don't know if it's common in the UK, but the whole idea of a first look is basically you two just go and see each other before the ceremony. It's private. You can take some pictures. Sometimes people will do like a private vow reading just to each other before the big public ceremony. The reason that we did that though is just for time, because then we could take photos together before our guests arrived. So we did like all of our family photos, the bridal party photos before everyone got there, and then took more photos after the ceremony. The alternative is obviously to just wait and then see each other for the first time during the ceremony, like when you come down the aisle, but I don't really mind. Like I didn't have a personal huge preference about that. And I know that it's better for time, and I kind of liked having that moment private, so it worked out for the best. I know for a lot of people the ceremony is really important to them, and like that moment at the ceremony is important to them, but we're already married. We got married in 2021, so I wasn't too worried about it. I could do a private first look. I thought it was nice too. I liked it. I mentioned that dock they have in the backyard of the house. We did the first look on the dock back there, like by the lake. It was really pretty. And I'm jumping all over the place with this timeline, but back to cocktail hour. After we finished that, everybody comes inside, and then we did our first dance. I think that's like a little bit of an odd order compared to normal, but because we couldn't have any amplified sound outside, we like went inside, did me and Dan's first dance, and then the DJ was like, okay, now go outside to dinner. So everybody went back outside again, kind of a back and forth. But behind the house, there's like some pretty brick stairs, and then there's like a brick patio, and we had paid for a tent to be set up out there. I don't love the look of tents like that, but it's nice to have as a backup plan in case of rain, because the house is kind of small. It's a very old house. So if we had to do dinner inside, like it would have been a disaster if it had rained. So the tent was like a precautionary thing. I'm really glad that we did it though, because we strung up fairy lights across the whole top of the tent, and then we also got greenery in the tent. So it looked really pretty. It was kind of like fairy vibes. I'm gonna put a picture right here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You guys, this looked so good. And I have to admit something to you. When I initially talked to the florist, they were like, we think it would be cool if you put greenery in the tent. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, what a waste of money. So stupid. I don't need to do that. I would never spend money on that because it was gonna be $1,000. $1,000 for greenery in the tent. And I was like, why would anyone do that? I never need to do that. That's so silly. Well, cut to last month, like a month before the wedding, I was like, oh no, I think maybe I want greenery in the tent. After a year of me being like, I don't need that. I don't need that. I changed my mind last minute, like a month before the wedding. And I'm so glad I did. I thought it was a waste of money. It probably is a waste of money. Like, obviously I didn't need to actually have that, but it looked really pretty. So I'm glad that I spent the money on that. I didn't have any ridiculous splurges that I felt like, hey, I'm doing something silly right now. Most things we paid for, I felt were like reasonable, you know, for a wedding. The greenery was my splurge. That was my ridiculous splurge, and I'm so glad. I'm really glad that I had it. But we had dinner out there underneath the tent. We had a full vegetarian wedding, which was big drama, apparently. Some people were like, oh, why is there no meat at the wedding? I'm vegetarian for 10 years, so I didn't really want to pay for meat at the wedding. I kind of wanted to be able to eat everything at the wedding. It was still good food. We had a stuffed pepper, like a tofu stuffed pepper. There was a butternut squash ravioli, and there was also a mac and cheese, but like a fancy mac and cheese. It was really good. Everything was really good. And then after dinner, everyone came back inside, and that's when like the party started. So we had like the DJ in there. Oh, we did brief champagne toasts inside. We had done like speeches at the rehearsal dinner the night before, so we didn't do like long speeches or anything. It was just like our parents were kind of like, thank you for coming, toast to the bride and groom sort of vibe. And I used my mom and dad's champagne flutes from their wedding for me and Dan's. We had like fancy ones. I don't really drink. So they handed me this full glass of champagne and this really fancy champagne flute. I took one sip and then I handed it to my mom because I didn't want it, you know? And then there's this picture of my mom, biggest smile on her face, like cackling, laughing, 2 glasses in hand. One's the normal one and then one is my fancy one. It's a really funny photo. We also had a Polaroid camera guest book. So I bought like an empty guest book with just blank white pages, and then I bought a Polaroid camera and a bunch of film because I wanted the guests to like take a picture and then sign their name next to it. And I had read some horror stories on Reddit about these Polaroid guest books after I bought it. So I was kind of like, oh no, it might go really bad. Somebody said that a person stole their Polaroid camera in the beginning of the wedding. Someone just like pocketed it and put it in their purse. Nobody took mine. I can't imagine stealing a Polaroid at somebody else's wedding, but I guess, I mean, it happened. I didn't think anyone was gonna steal our camera. The more horror stories that I had read were about people wasting the film, where they would take like 5 photos each and then take 4 of them and put them in their bag and then like put just one in the guest book. So I was kind of scared about not having enough of the film, but everybody loved these cameras. They did take a lot of extra photos, but people were like taking photos of me and Dan, which I didn't even realize at the time. But there's like photos of me and Dan on the dance floor and me and Dan together, and they just saved them next to the guest book for us. So we ended up with a bunch of extra photos plus all the ones in the guest book, and I'm really glad about that. I really liked that we had that. And it's more fun than just a guest book that has names next to it. People do loads of different guest books. You'll see people get like one big photo and they sign the frame or like sign the matting for the photo. There's a lot of cute things that you can do, but from my experience, I would recommend the Polaroid guest book idea. I love it. I really liked seeing them all afterward. And it was kind of like a fun thing to do as people arrived, because they were all getting there early and then they would just like walk around the garden, take their photo. So it's kind of cute. We didn't have that many guests though, so I think maybe if your wedding is like big, it might be kind of scary and maybe too expensive. We had 74 people at the wedding, which sounds like a lot, but in the scheme of weddings isn't really that much. My cousin had 200 at her wedding, which is a lot. That's a lot. I Googled it and apparently the average is 75 to 150, which is a big range. Somebody else said it averaged 117. So 74 is not a small wedding, but it's not like a big wedding. If you had more people, you might have like a lot of film that you have to buy for the Polaroids. I thought it was a good size though, because I could actually talk to everybody. Like I got to see everyone. When you have too many people, you can't really spread your time across them all, you know? I'm trying to think about other fun things that we did at the wedding that were like maybe kind of silly. For example, we had favors, but I bought Gideon's Bakehouse cookies. If you've been to Disney World, you might know about these. They're like really famous. People wait in line for an hour at Disney Springs to get these Gideon's cookies. You can look them up. They have like giant cookies covered in chocolate chips, like the most ridiculous indulgent cookie you'll ever see in your entire life. They are really good though. And they're kind of like an Orlando classic, I guess, because the original Gideon's Bakehouse is in Winter Park where the wedding is. There's this really cool place called East End Market, and there's like lots of small businesses in this market, and the original Gideon's is there. If you ever go there, there's also a really good vegan restaurant called Winter Park Biscuit Company. I would recommend. And across the street, there's a romance bookstore that just opened called The New Romantics. Really cool place. You should go there. But we bought Gideon's cookies as the wedding favors. So I had 70 of them. I bought so many of these cookies. We went to pick them up at East End Market because that's where they do their catering orders. And we had this cardboard box that I swear was like this big, but it was a hit. Like people loved those. When they saw them, they were like, oh my God, you have Gideon's. Because we had a lot of guests who had traveled from out of town who had like heard about it before. So they were all really excited to try them, or maybe they'd had them before and they were so excited to have them again. So I'm glad that we did that. We also had a popcorn cart in the beginning. I never even got any of the popcorn because they had the popcorn cart set up when the guests were arriving, and I had to be hiding like inside of the little room in the house just waiting until I had to go out, because you're not supposed to like step out in your wedding dress until the ceremony. So I was just sat inside waiting. I kind of feel like I missed half my own wedding because of this, but that's not true. Not actually half. But it's definitely a different experience being like the bride at the wedding, because I was just waiting for a lot of it, just waiting for the ceremony to start. At one point, Dan's brother went out and he like took a video for me, like a POV of everything outside so that I could see it as people were getting there. Oh, and speaking of dessert, back to that for a second. We had a cake. It wasn't a very big cake because we had a lot of dessert at the wedding, but we had a cake. It was 2 tiers, but like this big. And so me and Dan did a cake cutting. And when we did the cake cutting, we got the funniest picture out of this, because we were stood there and we were like slicing the bottom tier. And then I put the like cake thing inside to pull out the slice, and I swear to you, it was just icing. Like only the icing came out of the cake and a tiny bit of cake at the bottom. So we pulled it out, and I have like the like knife thing here, and there's a cake slice like this tall on it, but it's all icing. It's like this thick, the tiniest little cake slice you'll ever see. I don't even know how this happened. Like I don't know how I messed it up this bad, but I basically didn't cut the cake. This made me laugh out loud. Like I was cry laughing. Honestly, it couldn't have gone better. Like if the cake cutting went well, it's like, oh, okay, you cut the cake. But when the cake cutting fails, you have a good moment out of it. So I'm actually glad that it happened. And there was enough cake for us to to like each take a bite of it. There was enough at the bottom, so it was fine, but I couldn't believe it was just so tall. The icing just so tall and only icing. And then after the wedding, we just kind of came straight home. I didn't stay in a hotel or anything. I just went back to my house. I wanted to be with the cats. And so when we got home, me and Dan took some pictures like in our full outfits with the cats. I had put like tape on they make like body tape, I guess, to hold your sleeves up. And so I had put some tape to keep the sleeve on my shoulder. I don't even think I really needed it. But at one point when I was trying the dress on, my sleeve slipped down and I was like, no, it's not happening during the wedding. So I bought the tape for it. Well, when I took the dress off after the end of the night, I had a horrible red mark. It kind of took some skin off with it. It has since healed, but like sleeping that night was kind of painful because my shirt was like rubbing into this part of my skin that was so red and angry. I think if you can avoid using that stuff, I would. I'm sure there's better brands too. I didn't like really research it. I just bought some on Amazon, to be honest. Maybe I shouldn't have, but it was fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. I did think like, wow, that was a mistake though after I took the dress off. I also lied on the internet about when the wedding was. I told everybody that it was on Sunday. It was not on Sunday. It was on Saturday. I was trying to make like offhand comments being like, oh my God, you guys, my wedding's on the same day as the Super Bowl. Can you believe it? Why would I do that? It wasn't. I lied. I was really scared about people showing up to the wedding. We've had some incidents in the past, so I was just like hyper aware of that and like afraid about it. So we hired security for the wedding. We like lied about when it was. I knew I couldn't really lie about the weekend that it was because there was so much going on and I was pre-recording and like the Sims anniversary. So I said that it was that weekend, but I did lie and say it was on Sunday. Nothing happened. Nothing went wrong. And I think it was far-fetched that anything would have gone wrong or anything would have happened, but just out of an abundance of caution, I lied. I also asked my friends to not post about the wedding until after we had left the venue. I didn't mind if they posted, but I was just like, just wait until the event is over, then you can post, you know, because I don't want to risk like leaking something about it. It feels really dramatic of me to ask that, but I think given the internet, we all know how the internet can be, I think it was worth to do. And we actually hosted a Super Bowl party the next day at my parents' house, which I never in my life thought I would do. Like, I cannot believe that I hosted a Super Bowl party at my wedding because a lot of my family will host like a brunch after their weddings. Most of my cousins have had like a wedding brunch the next day and stuff. And so we were thinking about that. And then we were like, well, it might be kind of nice because a lot of our guests were British, like coming from the UK. They might enjoy having an opportunity to watch the Super Bowl. It's like kind of a funny American thing to get to experience. So we ended up hosting a Super Bowl party instead of a brunch the next day. I personally do not care at all about sports. Like, I could not have cared less about football, but it was kind of fun to have all my friends over at my parents' house. So like, I'm actually glad that we did that. We bought a projector and a screen to put on the patio. So now I have a projector screen, so I'm kind of excited about that to like watch movies outside on. My parents have a fire pit, so we were like roasting marshmallows outside. My dad was grilling, and I think people liked it. I think it was a good time. So I'm glad that we did that. It was a bit weird. I never thought that I would be the one doing that, but I'm glad that we did. I barely watched the game though. I was just hanging out with my friends, basically. I watched the halftime show, but I barely watched the game. And then this past week has been pretty fun because we had a lot of friends and family in town, and they were all like going to Disney and like doing fun things like that in town. So like I went to Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom with Dan's family. All my friends went to Magic Kingdom, so I went with them. I've been to the theme parks a lot this week. Everybody asked me like, oh, are you gonna have a honeymoon? And I was like, no, I don't want to. Well, first of all, I don't want to plan anything like that for straight after the wedding because I want to just be at home, you know? Like, I wanted to be here after the wedding. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to plan anything extra. Maybe at some point this year we'll do something small, but I wasn't planning on like going anywhere straight away. Plus, with everybody being in town, I wanted to see them while they were in town because like Dan's family is never here. They're from England. It's a big trip for them to make, and like all my friends were here, so I wanted to spend time with them while they were here. So I've actually been busy every single day since the wedding. I haven't had a single day of chill. I'm back to work today on Friday. The wedding was last Saturday, so we did a lot of fun stuff, but I haven't just been home ever since the wedding. We've been like go, go, go. But it was really good. This is like a once in a lifetime experience to get to have people in town like this, and so I've really been enjoying spending time with them. That was like the most beautiful, fun part of this whole thing was just like all of our friends and family being together. Cause like my parents and Dan's parents have met, but our extended families haven't met. It's impossible. My cousins live all over the US. So you just don't really get an opportunity like that for like my extended family to meet his. And so I really loved that. And that's like the beauty of a wedding, I guess, is that people get to do that. But also like for my uncles to meet my friends, I think they really enjoyed getting to talk and do that. So I really loved that aspect of it. That was like the most important, beautiful part to me. I could cry just thinking about people like coming in town for this. Like it means so much to me that people cared to come do this thing for me. Like it's almost a little bit embarrassing to have a wedding and like ask people to travel to come celebrate you. Like you feel a bit bad asking that of people, and the fact that they did and they wanted to, and they had, I think, a really good time while they were here. I'm so glad. I'm so happy. It really was such a wonderful day. And I know it's kind of cringe that me and Dan got married 3 years ago and we just now had the wedding. But when Dan and I got married, it was during COVID. If you're new to my channel, you might not know this, but Dan obviously is from the UK. I've said it about 10 times. But we did the K1 fiance visa. So if you've seen 90 Day Fiance, that visa, we did that. We dated long distance for years, and then we applied for the K1 visa. And the whole point of that visa is once you get it, your partner has 90 days to move to the US and then get married in those 90 days. And then you like file to adjust status, you get your green card. It's a long process. In hindsight, I wouldn't recommend that visa to anyone. I would just get married and file for a spousal visa. It's really hard to get married and then be apart while you wait for the visa to process, but my God, you have so much more. Once you enter, you just have your green card, you have your work permit, you don't have to wait for an adjustment of status process. We applied during COVID. We originally applied in February of 2020, and then obviously COVID hit and they stopped processing our visa category, so we had to wait like twice as long. It was bad. So when he finally got the visa, he moved here and we had to like basically instantly get married. So we couldn't plan a wedding. His parents couldn't come because the borders were still closed because of COVID. Like you physically could not travel internationally. You couldn't enter the US from Europe. So we always wanted to have a wedding celebration with family eventually. It just took us a while because we like bought a house and did that first. And you know, so it was really nice for me to finally have this day. It meant a lot to me. So even if you think it's stupid, I know it might seem stupid. It was really emotional and great for me. I loved it. This was the best day ever. In his vows, Dan started by being like, well, we've been married for like 4 years. It was kind of funny. Also, I haven't mentioned the build a single time. I'm so sorry. I won't. I'm just gonna keep talking and then we'll do a tour at the end. I'll show you around later on. I guess I kind of skipped over the getting ready part for the wedding. So our ceremony started at 4:30 in the afternoon. Our guests arrived around 4, but I was up all day. We started the getting ready process at 5 a.m. I didn't, but we collectively did, because we had hair and makeup artists do my sister, Dan's sister, and then both of our moms and me. So the woman who did our hair, Promise, arrived at 5 a.m. to my house to start like the hair and makeup process. So Caitlin and Becky came at 5 a.m. to my house to start getting ready, and I just woke up with them to like be there. I certainly didn't have to, but I just woke up. I get kind of nervous. Like I can't really sleep in when I know that I have like a big thing going on. So I probably would have woken up naturally at like 5:30 anyway. So it wasn't a big deal to me. I woke up, I was there, we were committed. And poor Caitlin, Dan's sister, oh my God, this was a disaster. She's not allergic to cats. She's been to our house. She's never had a problem. She's never had an issue with cat hair ever in her entire life. She gets to our house at 5 a.m. on the day of the wedding. While they're like setting up all the hair stuff, she's petting Snap on the couch. She rubbed her eye because it was 5 a.m. Her eye instantly swells shut. It gets like bright red and puffy, tears streaming down her face, eye swollen shut. The makeup artist hasn't arrived yet, but she's on her way. And Caitlin is supposed to be the first one to get her makeup done. Oh my God. This couldn't have gone worse. Never in her life has this happened. And now on the wedding day, Caitlin's eye has swollen shut, allergic reaction to Snap. We had allergy medicine. She like took some. She was using like a cold compress on her eye, and thankfully the swelling went down. Took like 2 hours, but it went back to normal, and you couldn't tell later in the day that it had happened. We had to kind of like switch around the makeup order, but that's fine. It was fine. And she was okay. It's just kind of a funny, like, of course that happened, you know? I know she was really stressed about it. I felt so bad, like, but it was fine. But we all got our hair and makeup done. We had like donuts and fruit and orange juice at the house. And then later on in the day, the guys came over, like my brother, Dan's brother, and then our dads came over. And then they all went together to a hotel to get ready at a hotel and like take photos at the hotel. And that way I could put on my dress and stuff and then not have to worry about being seen. But I didn't care that Dan was there during the day. Like, he woke up at the house. He was there when I was getting my hair done, kind of, and then they left. And the photographer and videographer also came to our house first before they went to the venue. So they took a few getting ready photos, and they also took some pictures of Snap, which was really fun for me. Snap is my childhood cat. I have 3 cats. Snap is almost 17. The other 2 are 1.5. Snap is also really brave. Like, she'll climb in anybody's lap. She'll sit with a stranger. Like, she's super brave. The kittens are not brave. They don't like strangers, but Snap is. And so she was able to be in some of the photos. So we all took like getting ready photos with with Snap. And the photographer also started doing flat lay photos. So she takes like photos of the invitation and like of the rings and my shoes. So she was taking all those pretty flat lay photos, and Snap was just walking across. It was so funny. She's trying to take these pictures and Snap was walking across. Sydney, the photographer, loved it. She was like, quick, get my camera, take pictures of Snap with the stuff. So it was actually really good. It was a really sweet afternoon, morning. And then around 1:30, we went to the venue. I got into my dress. We had our first look, took some photos, and then, you know, the wedding happened. I told that story super out of order, but that is the full build, and that is my full story. I'm now gonna pop back into the game, and I'll give you a tour of the build. So we'll actually talk Sims for a second now. As a reminder, this is the empty lot that we built this one on. And if you're looking for it on the gallery, this lot is called Mountain View Venue because the background is so pretty with the mountains. It uses a lot of packs, and for that, I'm so sorry. Like, this is really bad, but this is what it looks like if you place it. Oh boy, here we go. Hopefully it won't crash. Yay, it didn't crash. Okay, good. So I said the venue wasn't really inspired by mine, but like color scheme wise, it kind of is. Because my real life venue has like the white outside and the red brick patios. We also had the tent at our wedding, so I kind of did that too, but I'll point out some details. This is what it looks like when you first walk up to the building. I think this is so pretty. I put a lot of debug floral stuff from Cottage Living outside just to take out some of the empty space. When you walk in, you can come up straight through the front doors and go inside, or you can go to the left. We've got a beautiful fountain over here. And to the right, we have the outdoor reception space, but I'm gonna get back to that because I wanna kind of walk you through the wedding order. So we're gonna come straight inside and you're gonna come straight upstairs because you're gonna come over this way and you're gonna get ready for the day. So through this door, we have what I'm calling the bridal suite, but I basically put a vanity. There's like a hair and makeup chair. I put a mannequin because in my mind, you could hang up the dress. There also is a bed, so if you wanted to sleep here, your Sims could. You could just stay the night. There's also a really big bathroom with a tub and a shower in case you need it. And there's like a public bathroom upstairs, so we have an extra toilet and stuff over here. I also put kind of like a photo spot upstairs. This was just empty space, and I was gonna put like chairs, but I thought that was a little bit less useful. So pretend that you get ready and then you come take your portraits, like your bridal portraits right here in front of the flowers. And this is an actual camera, so you can use that for real in game. And then you would go downstairs. This is your guests arriving now. So they would come in, they could sign your guest book right here. This is actually a frame TV, and I thought it was kind of cute because I figured they might put like a sign there, like the wedding of Kayla and Daniel on the frame TV. And then your guests would kind of shuffle in through here and they would start taking their seats. We've got a piano for your live music. And I put a bunch of chairs and it's all lined with flowers in here. We also have this big aisle from Wedding Stories, so you can actually host a wedding and have them walk down it this way. At the very front, I didn't want to put too much. I didn't want it to be too busy in the back, but we have this really pretty picture window with like the beach and the water behind it. And I felt like that was the decor. So I didn't put a ton of stuff back there. But you would have your wedding right there. There's actually a pretty glass roof above it, so you get some beautiful light coming in. And after you finish your ceremony, you would shuffle outside and you would come this way into the reception space. So through these doors, we have the bar, front and center. This is the life and death bar, and it's got skulls in it, which maybe is not the most bridal, but it's pretty. So I use that. I also put the guest book again inside and a cake table. This is a cake from Wedding Stories, so it's functional and it places on the gallery. But I wanted to make sure it fit, so I put that there, and I put like some plates down too for you, plus a menu with the cake flavors, I guess. We have this toast bucket that's functional in game too. And then I put these really big, pretty round tables inside. So those are kind of peppered around the whole place. In the back, we have the buffet table for your food. There's a microphone for speeches, and then I have the DJ booth and a dance floor. I also put a disco ball, just for fun. And then back this way, we have 2 bathrooms for your guests to use when they're in this reception area. Plus, there's a full kitchen. So if you hire a caterer, they can bake the cake, they can make your food. And I put one of those little supply closet woohoo spots in here just for fun. So you've got that too. But that's kind of like the whole indoor wedding vibe. If you wanted to have an outdoor wedding, let's try again. Let's arrive as a guest again. So you'll come through the doors, but this time you're just gonna walk straight through. You're gonna keep going, and you'd come out this way where we have a really pretty fountain in the back. There's some tables outside and a bar. In my mind, this is like for cocktail hour, but you'd keep walking forward and you'd have this venue for your outdoor ceremony. It's the same stuff, same arch, same chairs, just laid out outside instead. And I think that it looks really pretty back here. One thing to consider is that you do get townies walking by, but that's fine. You could also take some more photos back here. I've got a second photo set up. There's some benches around. Then you can come across this way to the outdoor reception space. space, I've got some more cocktail tables set up. They're just like bar height tables with some candles. In real life, your guests would like stand around those with their drink. In The Sims, they don't use them, but it looks pretty, so I put those. We also have a second dance floor out here, but this one kind of has like a pergola vibe to it. I tried to build it out. DJ booth in front of it. We've got the buffet table. There's an outdoor bar. And then with this, I've got sort of like a long banquet table vibe, and I put a tent above it, kind of like what I had. So your Sims will sit all at one big long table and they can eat out here. I didn't put a sweetheart table or anything. Sometimes in real life, you might have like this table at the front with just 2 chairs. Me and Dan had one of those, but I felt like it didn't fit back here, so I didn't do that. Plus, your Sims don't need that. They won't use it. It's fine. But I also have a piano. There's a microphone. This is the cake table. The cake will fit right in the middle there. And then back here, we have a guest book and a gift table for your Sims as well. So you've got everything. If you wanted to host a wedding here, you've got options. Inside, outside, mix of both. You could do it all. And I had a lot of fun building this. This is the first wedding venue that I've built since I've been like actively planning a wedding. So I feel a little bit more knowledgeable about how it all works. So it was kind of fun to visualize as I was building this. I'm thinking that it might be kind of fun also to try and build my real life wedding venue now. So let me know if you think that I should do that, because I'm kind of down to try, or at least build something similar. It would be a little bit smaller than this one. This is a lot. But on that note, I am gonna wrap this video up right here. Thank you for watching. Thank you all so much for all of your well wishes about the wedding. You had me crying about that Instagram post that I put up. I was not expecting you all to be that nice to me, and that really does mean a lot to me. So thank you for being so like kind and supportive, and just people like really hype you up on your wedding day. The comments made it out like I was a princess or something. It was really nice of you. So thank you. I'm gonna stop yapping now. I'm gonna go, and I will catch you all tomorrow. Okay? Bye everybody. Hey, and if you made it this far, you are very brave. So thank you for listening to me yap for this long. I loved making this video. This has been fun for me.